Welcome back to Choirwire, the podcast keeping music educators connected to the art of teaching. I'm Alex, your host. Today's episode is one that I've been wanting to unpack for a while, ever since we started this podcast. It's about discipline. Now, before your brain jumps to referrals, detentions, or the dreaded classroom management binder, pause. This episode isn't about punishment. It's about culture. It's about how we build spaces where students feel safe, accountable, and proud of their role in the ensemble. It's about how discipline becomes a shared language, not a top-down mandate. So if you're a choral director who's ever felt stuck between being too strict or too soft, if you've ever wondered how to hold high standards without losing connection, or if you're just trying to figure out how to reset the tone mid-year, this one is for you. Let's dig in. Let's start by reframing the word itself. Discipline isn't about control. It's about alignment. It's about systems, expectations, and relationships that help students stay connected to the purpose of the room. In a choir classroom, discipline shows up in the way students enter the space, how they treat each other, how they respond to feedback, and how they carry themselves in rehearsal. It's not just about behavior. It's about belonging. When discipline is working, students know what's expected. They know what happens when those expectations aren't met. And most importantly, they know why those expectations exist. It's not arbitrary. It's not about power. It's about protecting the culture. Before we start talking about strategies, we have to talk about foundations. Discipline doesn't start with rules. It starts with relationships. Students won't follow expectations they don't understand, and they won't respect boundaries from someone they don't trust. So here are some pillars. First, let's think about clarity. Students need to know what the expectations are, not just vague ideas like be respectful, but specific, observable behaviors. What does respectful rehearsal posture look like? What does active listening sound like? Consistency. Expectations only work if they're upheld every time. That doesn't mean being rigid. It means being reliable. Students should be able to predict your response, not fear it. When you've really gotten it down, there are students that will go to bat for you if they see someone disrespecting the rules or breaking the rules or thinking about even breaking the rules. They will have a response for those disrespectful students and say, no, Miss Smith isn't going to like that. Connection. Discipline is relational. Students need to feel seen, valued, and supported. Correction without connection feels like rejection, but correction with connection feels like care. Reflection. Students should be part of this process. When things go wrong, they should have a space to reflect, repair, and re-engage. Discipline isn't just about consequences. It's about growth. Now let's talk about systems. These are the structures that make discipline sustainable, not just reactive. The way students enter the room sets the tone, whether it's a warm-up on the board, a greeting at the door, or a music cue that signals transition. The entry routine should be consistent and calming. It's not about control. It's about rhythm. So your rehearsal norms. Post them, practice them, refer to them often. Rehearsal norms should be visible, memorable, and student-informed. Things like eyes on the conductor, mark your music, celebrate effort, and silence is a strategy can become part of the ensemble's shared language. I have a poster that I made a long, long time ago, and I just had it redone a couple years ago. But it is what I like to call my 3 C's for success. It's a colorful poster, and there's 3 C's on there. So the first one is commitment, and then you've got consistency, and then the third one is confidence. So those 3 things, I believe, work hand in hand in order to allow students to be the best that they can be in the classroom. Let's talk about correction protocols. When a student disrupts rehearsal, the response should be predictable. Maybe it's a nonverbal cue. Maybe it's a quiet redirect. Maybe it's a private conversation after class. The key is that the correction doesn't derail the rehearsal or shame the student. It redirects with dignity. Consider using reflection sheets, exit tickets, or quick journaling prompts when patterns emerge. Give students space to name what's happening, why it matters, and how they plan to move forward. This isn't busy work, it's accountability. You can check out my Teachers Pay Teachers site for one of those restorative exercises. Discipline isn't just about correction. Remember that. It's about reinforcement. Celebrate the behaviors you want to see. Shout out students who lead with kindness, focus, and integrity. Let the culture be shaped by what's honored. An example of that is one of my expectations is to be in your seat by the time the bell rings. I don't know how I was so blessed with a great first period tenor bass beginning choir this year, but the majority of them, I know it's, still the beginning of the school year, but the majority of them are on time every single day. The majority of them are always in their seat by the time the bell rings. The majority of them are sitting quietly and just waiting. Now it is first period, so I did that on purpose so they'd be a little sleepy. But for the most part, they are so compliant with those expectations, and it just makes things so much easier and smoother to get my day going. Let's get into the real stuff here. What happens when discipline breaks down? When the energy shifts? When students push back? Here's a scenario. Let's say it's chronic talking during rehearsal. Instead of escalating, pause and reset. Ask the ensemble to reflect. What's our goal today? What's getting in the way? Let students name the issue, then revisit the norms. Rehearse the behavior you want to see. And if needed, pull students aside privately, not publicly. I had to do that the other day. We stood up for warm-ups and we started, doing our thing, stretching. And there was there's some chatter happening. And it is the beginning of the school year. So once again, you want to rehearse the behavior that you want to see. So I had the students sit back down and I said, I'm going to give you another shot at that. And so they caught on very quickly. And I said, let's have another stand up. And so they stood without talking that time. So they understood without me having to say, stop talking. You're talking in the back. Stop talking. So it's just, let's try that again. Here's another scenario. Disrespect towards peers. This one's delicate. Start with safety. Make it clear that the choir room is a space of dignity. Address the behavior directly, but always seek context. Is the student hurting? Is there a pattern? Is there a need that's not being met? Discipline here means repair, not just consequence. Here's another scenario. A student refuses to sing. Instead of forcing participation, invite conversation. Ask what's holding them back. Offer choices. Can they mark the music? Can they listen and reflect? Discipline here is about engagement, not compliance. And this, I think, is a really, really important thing to understand, that it's not a battle. It's not a fight of, I'm going to make you sing. You can try, but it probably won't go over well. And there are a couple of moments in some of these episodes where I've talked about trust and community building. And so if the students don't trust you or feel comfortable in that situation, then, we're missing step one. After you've built that and built it enough, after that, that's when, if the student is still refusing to sing, that's when we have a conversation of what's going on. There was a boy the other day, he slept the entire time while we were singing. I'm not going to go pick a fight with him. I'm not going to bother him. I'm not going to, say, yo, wake up. I'm not going to do all that. I just said, hey, Jay, come see me after class. And I kept going, even though he was a little asleep. But I talked to him and I said, hey, what's going on? And he's like, I don't even know. And I said, did you not get any sleep last night? What's going on? And he said, I just cannot stay awake this morning. So who knows? We have to think about what is possibly going on at home. We need to think about what might be happening emotionally. before we just assume that the child wants to be defiant, you know. And also, too, you cannot take it personally. I have a big issue with this with myself. I have to remind myself, you cannot take it personally. Let them do it. There's that book that's, titled Let Them. So it's always a conversation at the end, of course. And as much praise as you can give them for even just standing up, I think that also goes hand in hand with that step one process. Here's another scenario. A student challenges authority. Help me understand what's going on, you can ask. Avoid the power struggles. Avoid the power struggles. Focus on restoring the trust. Discipline means holding the boundary and holding the space. Once you let on to the other students that you've lost the ability to reason with this student, or you've sort of lost the integrity by either losing your cool or, allowing the student to have the power, things get kind of weird and dicey in the classroom. So I'd stay away from that. Do not allow a little 14-year-old to, steal your thunder. Of course, this is, realistically wise, of course, if it's something that the student is doing that's unsafe to the other students or to themselves or to you, obviously you want to get, some extra help in that classroom. You need to call admin. But otherwise, if it's something that's not hurting the students or, something that's not going to be harmful, then sometimes it's just best to ignore and just keep going. You have probably 35 other amazing, beautiful children in that room that are really with you. And the moment that you take time to give that one or two students all that attention, then you've lost the class. Choose your battles. Think about what's really important in that moment. Words matter. The way discipline is framed shapes how students experience it. Here are some phrases that support a healthy culture. Let's reset together. Remember, I talked about that earlier. I said, hey, let's try that again. What do you need to be successful right now? This space works best when we all contribute. I care about you and I care about this ensemble. Let's figure out how to move forward. Avoid sarcasm and public shaming. Avoid vague threats. Discipline language should be kind and clear and rooted in mutual respect. I think some of us are used to that old school discipline where, it's threat here or threat there, or there's some sort of public shaming involved. But once you do that, then the other students will then fear that it might happen to them too. And then you've lost all the community and culture that you've built. And then it just goes downhill from there. At its core, discipline is about care. It's about creating a space where students feel held, not controlled, where they know the boundaries exist to protect their growth, not punish their mistakes. In the choir classroom, discipline is what allows artistry to flourish. It's what makes risk-taking possible. It's what turns a group of individuals into an ensemble. When students know they're safe and supported and accountable, they show up differently. They sing differently and they lead differently. And when directors approach discipline not as a burden, but as a form of love, the culture shifts. The room becomes a place of pride. I just have to be real for a second too, y'all, because sometimes we let the kids get underneath our skin, and that is okay. That's a human thing to to experience. And there are a couple of students in our program right now that I'm like, wow, it would be so much better without you in it. But we still want to lead with love and allow them to come around, because we've all had those students that were like, wow, you are really kind of terrible. And then eventually they come around and they're like, wow, I was really terrible. I'm like, yeah, I know you were. So times like that will happen. We're working on a girl right now. I think that might be a thing. But you know what? I'm not going to lie to you and say that, things are perfect in my classroom. That's never going to be a thing. So please don't think that. And I'm never going to say those kinds of words. And with this podcast, I want you to know that life is real and my classroom is real. And I'm going to have issues and conflicts and challenges too, just like you. So just know that this is a podcast for everybody. And I want you to feel seen and heard. So feel welcome to interact with me and message me and let me know what's going on. I'm willing to listen to your problems too. I love to hear those things because I love a problem to solve. Or just if you need someone to listen to and vent to, I'm willing to listen to you as well. That's it for today's episode of Choirwire. Discipline isn't easy. It's layered, emotional, and sometimes exhausting. But it's one of the most powerful tools we have, not for control, but for connection. If this episode resonated or you're navigating a discipline challenge in your own classroom, I'd love to hear your story. Reach out, reflect, and keep building the kind of culture that holds students with strength and grace. Until next time. If Choirwire has added a little harmony to your rehearsal week or sparked something new in your planning, consider supporting the show. Just head on over to choirwire.buzzsprout.com to help support. No pressure, just a simple way to keep the ideas flowing and the episodes coming. I have ideas of expanding the show past my small platform. Thank you for all you do, and thanks for being part of this community.